All right, you're watching the Get Busy Living podcast, and I'm Dr. Scott from 16 Second Venture in the Healthy Habits Club. And we've got a wonderful guest today, and it's Alyson Williams. Thank you so much, Alyson, for coming on the podcast and giving us some gold nuggets today. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Scott. Thanks for having me.
So I'll start off with my usual question, first question.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, Alyson, what gets you out of bed every day?
I actually saw that question and had a laugh because, Scott, I love being in my bed. So literally getting me out of bed, it can be a bit of a challenge, but figuratively what gets me out of my bed is making a difference in the world. That really fills my cup. It makes my heart sing, and it just gives me so much joy.
Yeah, well, that's commendable, and it comes back to you got to love yourself to love others. So
for sure.
See, there you've got the self-love alchemist on there as well. So that makes sense. I get it. So I see that you're an empowering professional women through self-love alchemy, mindset transformation coach, an NLP master coach, relationship coach, hypnotherapist, extended disc practitioner, emotional fitness coach, and eye bling angel. That's a resume and a half. So tell us which one do you want to talk about first, and how did you get into it?
Well, I got into it when I said my very comfortable life fell in my head. So I was living, as I say, a comfortable life. We had no debts. We were sort of reasonably happy. My husband and I had been married for 25 years. We weren't having huge everyday issues, but underlying there was obviously stuff that wasn't going well with the marriage. So that was happening on one hand. On the other hand, I had had a really great job that I was doing really well in. I had a wonderful boss. She had a lot of faith in me. I was her 2IC. When she wasn't, I'd step into her shoes. Her boss had huge regard for me because the stuff I was doing with our department and another federal government department in Canberra was really kicking some goals. And I used to work directly with her boss, our branch head, because my boss had enough confidence in me to allow me to do that without her oversight. And her boss, the branch head, had also had some really good results with me, and we had a good relationship. So on the surface, things were going really well at work as well. But then my boss decided that she was going to retire because she'd been there long enough. And she gave her boss some notice. So he brought it in. She actually said to me, Alyson, when I retire, you can fill in my shoes. Now, with the public services, we call it in Australia, you have to apply. But generally, if you're there and you've got ones on the board, it's kind of much easier for you to get in than an outsider. As it turned out, this time, her boss had brought in another guy from outside, well, inside the department, but outside our organisation, to fill her role. Long story short, when he did come in and work with us, he created so much hassle in the workplace. And I'm one of these people who never do I want to do what I think, because I'll tell you. And I'm all about relationships, especially the one with myself, even back then before I was a coach. And I would always have a conversation with someone if the relationship wasn't working well, but I didn't trust him enough to have that conversation because, he hadn't been there that long. He had my performance review was due. He hadn't given me that. So until we had that, I wasn't willing to tell him what I thought was wrong. And again, long story short, that created a lot of stress in me. I ended up having what were TIAs, the mini strokes. I was not able to move the left side of my body for a while, and every now and again I'd lose mobility in my left arm. So I had all these issues that made me very anxious and very withdrawn, and I lost a lot of confidence. And then at the end of all this, my husband of 25 years said he wanted a divorce. So all this stuff was going on in my world, and I became very anxious, very withdrawn, lost a lot of confidence. And after I sort of came through all that, I decided, you know what, I want to find me again. So the divorce had happened. I'd gone back to work, but I had lost me. So I decided I actually wanted to get into, finding myself again. I was very lucky that I had a mother who instilled in me a great sense of self-confidence and self-love and self-worthiness. So I wanted to do that, and I found it again, which was awesome. then I decided I wanted to do that for other women as well. Because women, for whatever reason, tend to be the one, I think it's our conditioning, in fact it is our conditioning, society particularly, has made us, has put us in this role of being the nurturers, the carers, and looking after everyone else before we look after ourselves. That probably comes from the mother sort of role that we have, but it can be really debilitating to the individual. And I've been there, both in my job as well as in my marriage, and so I wanted to help other women to move past that, because we deserve more. Both men and women, every human being, their birthright is to be the magnificent being that they are. And I say we are all magnificent, and I would love to help you find your magnificence. So that's what I do. So all the modalities come from the fact that I used to be a teacher. That was my first job. After high school, I went into teacher training. And as a result of that, I really like to do stuff that's based in science and strong methodology, not just some kind of, airy-fairy sort of stuff. So that's why we have all the modalities. And the reason I like all of these is that I'm then able, I call myself I'm like a private chef, which is interesting given all the food in your background. So like a private chef chooses the most sumptuous ingredients to make a fabulous meal for their client. I choose the best from each of my modalities to bring it together to give my client the best possible journey they can have from where they are to where they want to be. And for me, self-love is the key to living your best life. You'll never get a short answer with me, Scott.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome. So let's go back. Let's go back to so you got out of school. You became a teacher. What sort of teaching was it? Primary school, high school? Was it TAFE? Was it?
As I said, there's never a straightforward answer to this. So I actually trained as a primary teacher, and which what our North American cousins called elementary school. Yeah. But when I graduated, there were no jobs available for primary teachers in Melbourne, right? And a friend of mine who was a couple of years senior, and when he was graduating, I said, "No, what are you going to do if you can't get a job?" He said, "Well, apparently I work as a brickies labourer." And he said, "Then I'll join the army as a second lieutenant." Well, I had no idea what a second lieutenant was. But after staying home for a couple of weeks and getting really tired of, ringing up and they say, "Oh, sorry, you're overqualified or you're not qualified enough," I decided I'd go and see what the army was doing. Well, happily, the army wasn't taking on anyone. But what happened was the Air Force hired me as a civilian teacher of adults. So I started my teaching career teaching adults, and I loved it. And then after my contract there finished, I then got a job as English as a second language teacher in a high school. So I only did 4 days of emergency teaching as a primary teacher, and the rest of my 8 years of teaching was all with adults or with high school kids.
And yeah, so that what happened then? What did you do when did you do it for long? Did you do it for just for a couple of years or?
Well, I worked for 8 years, and then my husband he was civilian. We actually met at the RAF base, so he was a teacher in the Air Force. He got out to be a civilian teacher in the same school because I didn't want to be a RAF wife who traveled around the world. I didn't ask him to leave; he just chose to do that before we got married, which I appreciated. Anyway, he was then sent on to a course, and after that, we came to Canberra. And I was wanting to leave teaching anyway because I really didn't have that job satisfaction. And for me, job satisfaction is everything. I really want to, as I say, get up in the morning, really wanting to make a difference. And I felt if I'm not making a difference here, what am I doing? So I wanted to get out of teaching. And while my husband was in this 1 year, I gave up my job, but I did apply to become a public servant. In those days, you could do an exam to join the federal government departments. So I did that, and then when we came to Canberra, because after he finished his course, we moved from Melbourne to Canberra, I then got a job in the Department of Defence. Ironically, it was again back in Defence, which is where I met him when I was a civilian. And I stayed there for 25 years doing a whole range of jobs. That's one of the good things about being in the public service. You can have your tenure. I was there for 25 years. and you can do multiple jobs in that meantime, and have the employment security, and have your superannuation and all those benefits just kind of roll on. So I probably had about 10 jobs, and I went from the very base level, an APS1 as they used to call it, to an EL1, which is sort of middle management, doing multiple jobs.
And what department was it? What?
Defense.
Defense. Oh, defense. Okay. That's federal. That was federal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that yeah, I understand. And how long did you do that for? How long were you in?
25 years.
25 years.
25 years seems to be a pattern in my life. 25 years of marriage and divorce, and 25 years of public service, and then retirement.
Yes. Yeah, I get it. Okay, so yeah, and being in, I was a public servant too, not as long as you, but that I did work for a large commercial company, and they pretty much acted exactly the same as the public service. So I sort of understand, and yeah, the indoctrination is just unbelievable. The
bureaucracy.
Yeah, and the red tape, it was just ridiculous. Everything you had to do had to be passed through 10 sets of hands, and no wonder nothing ever got done. I think that's by design, but I think they do that on purpose, so nothing ever actually really changes.
Well, I don't know. I'm not as cynical as you, Scott. I think, well, having worked in defence where, oh my gosh, you're talking about bureaucracy, you have to go through multiple layers to get that authorization. And one of the job that I really loved, where I was actually kicking goals, was where I was working on behalf of defence with the Department of Quarantine. And actually, it's now Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry. The quarantine aspect, because when our soldiers used to go overseas and come back, we needed to make sure that they weren't bringing anything into the country. So, that was where the kind of job that I was doing with those guys. And when they were rewriting the biosecurity legislation, they would send it to me to sort of get a response on behalf of defence. Now, defence is a huge department across the whole country. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and the hierarchy is really rigid. Whereas my opposite number, all her hierarchy were in Canberra, and she didn't have to go very far, and the bureaucracy wasn't as rigid. So they expected me to do a turnaround in like 2 or 3 days. I said, are you crazy? It'll take me 2 days just to get up to the boss, to my division head in the same building. Then I've got to go out to the rest of defence, or the other millions of organisations within defence. It'll have to go up, across, and then down, and then back up again, and across, and back down to me. I said, I mean, I can get that done in 2 months. Anyway, long story short, we obviously got that done because Defence did provide input into the biosecurity legislation. But it was that really brought it home to me that, Defence particularly is just so hierarchical compared with other government departments. But that's actually not the answer to your question. Well, not that you asked the question. But my thing is that the reason that government is so bureaucratic is because when you're dealing with public monies, you can't just, make a decision without having gone through all the checks and balances. So we need all the checks and balances to make sure that we are doing the right thing, because we have got taxpayers' money that we're responsible for. Now, on the other side of the world at the moment, there's a person who's using taxpayer money to go on golfing trips, right? And this is not meant to be a political statement, but just that when there are no checks and balances, absolute fraud, rorts, which is what we call them in Australia, just mismanagement, misuse, whatever is being neglect and negligence, anything you like, can happen. So you need the checks and balances to make sure that taxpayers' money is being used for a reasonable purpose in a responsible way. And that's why all these checks and balances are there to keep that happening. But unfortunately, it does take time, and it can lead to inefficiencies. But hopefully the effectiveness will, will counteract the efficiencies. There's always got to be a trade-off.
Well, that's not what I saw.
And
I saw things just get approved like that. It depended on who was in charge and who.
Absolutely. That will happen.
Who benefited, basically.
Yeah. In every walk of life, everywhere. Like even in schools, as a teacher and also as a parent, people would say, "What makes a good school?" And I say, "It actually depends on the principal." So if you have a really good principal who is a good leader and he can lead their people, in a really great way that brings great outcomes, it doesn't matter if it's a private school or a government school or wherever. It's all about the principal. So it's all about the leadership. As I say, the fish rots from its head, right? So if you've got a good leader, you have good organization. That's my strong.
I saw exactly the same thing. In many different companies that I work for, exactly the same thing happened. So when you got out of the military, is that when everything changed for you? Because you said you had a TIA, is that right? It changed
multiple. I had multiple.
Was it after the military or?
I was actually civilian. I wasn't in the military. No, it was while I was working in defence. That's what brought it on. Because having this horrible boss he created work-related stress. In fact, my doctor said I wasn't to go back and work for him. So it was probably about 8 years before I left work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what happened is that I then had to change jobs. So I still had my employment, so I didn't lose any money. But the job where I was making a difference, like with the quarantine and with customs and all that sort of stuff, I then had to be moved from that job and put to another area. So that really broke my heart because I knew that I was making a difference. And I could tell that there was a direct correlation between what I was doing and between our fighting men and women. And that meant a lot to me.
Yeah. I've seen that happen to other people in the public service. We didn't say it was light duties; they just call it another name. But it was pretty much they were just basically taking the workload off you, and putting you into another department. Yeah, I understand that. I get that.
Yeah.
And it is warranted. It is warranted when you have a TIA. I get it.
It is, but the problem wasn't, it was as much the physical issue was brought on by the environmental conditions.
Yeah, and yeah, true. I get it. It would have been a very stressful time in your life. I understand that.
Totally. I mean, they could have moved my boss, the director, but of course, it's harder to move a director than it is to move an assistant director. So it was easier to move a deputy director than the director himself because he had a lot of people working under him, and the organisation didn't work as well. So anyway, it all turned out well in the end. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I understand. So what happened then? You finally finished up. Although I've spoken to some people that were in the military for that long, and they said you don't really actually ever leave.
That's true. And in fact, now I don't think they let you leave in the military if you're quite senior because we really need that expertise. But for me, I found coaching probably a good 5 years before I retired. No, not 5, about 3 years before I retired. So I'd done my training, my initial training, and I'd done my assessments, and I did some pro bono work just to kind of, get some runs on the board. And I was also doing face-to-face networking because this was before COVID. So that was what I was doing while I was still doing my 9 to 5. And then when I retired, I decided I'd go into coaching full time. Now this was at the end of 2019, and I thought, you know what, I want to start doing workshops, kind of like the guy that when I joined up the coaching school, that's what he was doing. That's what really excited me. I thought I'd do workshops, and then from there I'll do one-on-one coaching. But it was 2019 in August because I turned 60 in September. So I finished up at the end of August. And I thought, I'll just take the rest of the year off and I'll start in the new year. Well, those of us in Australia know that 2019 we had those really bad fires. which made headlines around the world. We lost so many wildlife. We had so much devastation of property. A few people died as well. And even though in Canberra where I live, we didn't have any fires directly, but the smoke from the east coast, because we're inland, came to Canberra, and that traumatised people in Canberra because in 2003, Canberra itself had some really bad bushfires. It took out over 100 houses, and I think 3 people died. So people were being re-triggered, and I thought, I can't start a coaching business, when people are triggered by the fires. I'll wait till the fire thing finishes. But that was the start of 2020, and then you know what happened then? Mr. COVID decided to come and wipe the world clean. So then I was at home, and we did everything that we used to do online. We did offline, we then did online. So I did networking and stuff. But I really didn't have any clients. So I then spent a lot of time doing masterminds and networking and some training, etc. And did the odd client here and there, mainly through pro bono stuff. Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, what decided? Why did you decide to become a coach? Why did you decide to do that?
Well,
because of your experience as a teacher and as a mentor?
Very much, very much. And I have been mentoring or guiding in one way or another as a teacher, very much instead of helping kids, or not that I had that much time with kids, but helping kids and even helping the adults that I taught, sort of guiding them and giving them advice and what have you. My mother was a teacher, but just as well as that, she was also a wise woman that a lot of people would come to for advice. So she was my role model. So that was kind of what I was doing as well. I'd be sort of giving advice when I was asked to people in my life, colleagues. I'd say, if you're having trouble with this, have you thought about that? Or what about the other? So people used to naturally come to me for advice. So I was, in a way, coaching already without realizing I was coaching. And then when my own stuff fell in the heap and I then wanted to get back my self-confidence and get rid of my anxiety, etc., then I thought, this is such a natural fit. And because coaching is a lot, especially doing workshops and what have you, is a lot like teaching, and it uses many of the same skills, it was sort of like a no-brainer. And again, I was helping people. As I said before, I left coaching because I wasn't making a difference. So I left teaching because I wasn't making a difference. Now with coaching, I knew that I could make a difference, and I was making a difference, even just with my pro bono clients. So it just fills my heart and my soul.
Yeah. Okay. So you help, but you help lots of different people, not just women. You help men as well.
I have coached men, and the reason I say women is because when you finish coaching, you want to coach the world. But as people have told me, well, Alyson, you can't do that. You actually do have to market to people, because it's a bit like going into a bank and saying, I want some money. You have to say how much money I want, right? I'd like to have $500. Actually, I'd like to have $5,000 or $50,000. But whatever it is, and sometimes you might say, I'd like to have $500, and I'd like you to give me, five $50 bills or six $50 bills and two $100 bills. So that way you're being really specific. It's the same thing when you're in business with your niche. So I realized that I would have to narrow down, and I decided women over 40 who were kind of like me, who had been through something in their life that had thrown them off kilter, or they were just going through life not being as fulfilled as they would like to have been. So that's why I decided women. The other thing I think about with women are more likely to sort of want to do some personal work, whereas men not so much. And the other thing with women, I believe, when you coach a woman or you change a woman, she impacts the family. When you impact the family, you impact society. When you impact society, you can change the world, one person at a time. So that's the other reason I decided that I love coaching women. But I have coached men, as I said before, I niche down, and I love relationship coaching. So anybody who comes to me, if I feel I can help you, I will. And if I feel that they're not a good fit for whatever reason, it might be my skills, it might be that energetically we're not a good match, well, I'm more than happy to pass you on to someone who I know would be a good match. Because I know a lot of people who are in the coaching space, who are in the alternative healing space, even other Blue Angels. So, I'm more than happy to sort of say, hey, I can't serve you to your best, but I'm happy to pass you on to someone who I know can.
So, also on it says that you're an NLP master coach as well,
Mm-hmm.
and a relationship coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've trained in that as well, and hypnotherapy.
Yeah. Most of the stuff I've done multiple times. So NLP I've done 4 times now at master level. Hypnotherapy I've done 3 times. In fact, hypnotherapy and NLP go hand in hand. So with one of my NLP master trainings, I did some hypnotherapy, but then I did a much longer one to get a diploma of clinical hypnotherapy, where we went into past life regression, spirit release, if you believe in that. We did, healing, organ healing with that training, and then Mind Valley was doing a certification with Paul McKenna. I'm a big Paul McKenna fan. If you don't know who he is, go check him out on YouTube. He's a British hypnotherapist. He's amazing. So I signed up and did his as well. And I now have all of these tools and very different kind of versions of the same thing, because I just love learning and I love bringing what I have in my toolkit to help people get the results they want. And all of these things work really well together. As I said, that's why I call myself like a private chef, because I choose the ingredients to make the best meal as a chef. So I would choose the right modalities and the right processes to get the best outcome for you.
Yeah, gotcha. And yeah, because you've got a few different tools there. And I see also that you do disc profiling as well. So I've used disc profiling before, especially with employees.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And you're an emotional fitness coach. So that comes back to what you were saying before about you get to choose which tool you want to use depending on what the problem is.
Okay. Some of these things are also a philosophy. So emotional fitness is really about the relationship you have with life. Because, regardless of how well your life is going, you'll get a curveball somewhere. And how you deal with it is really about your emotional fitness. So, some people tend to talk about emotional intelligence, and it's kind of like that, but on steroids. Because emotional fitness is really about dealing with life's uncertainties. It's dealing with you and how you can evolve with the various levels you are. It talks about your identity. We have 4 different types of identity according to the EFF model, Emotional Fitness Formula model. It talks about going from a meaning-driven life to an ambition-driven life. So it has so many facets of your emotional makeup that it is just a beautiful program. And if anybody's interested in this program, you can actually buy the training program separate from the coaching from Joe Parnay, my coach, who actually developed the Emotional Fitness Formula.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, because it's a huge problem in today's society. It's, excuse me. Mental health is a massive problem. Was a 42.9% of the population, which I think is a conservative number. Sort of mental health issue. That being anxiety, depression, all those things that come under the mental health banner. But I think that's the people who came forward. They're the ones that came.
Totally.
They don't talk about the numbers that don't come forward, and they end up doing something that's we're not supposed to do.
Absolutely.
And that's I'd like to touch on that a bit more if you would, because it's a huge issue today. And tell us your understanding and your view on because I agree with you. We shouldn't call it depression. We should call it healthy. What do you call it? You call it emotional fitness.
Yeah,
I love that. That's a more positive way of
Absolutely. It can also be called emotional regulation, but the emotional fitness formula is the trademark that Joe Pane, the creator, has used. But it's about, and it comes from just knowing how to deal with stuff, right? When life throws you a curveball, what do? When you're in traffic and you're in a hurry and there's a traffic jam, what do? Do you get really angry? Do you get really upset? Do you kind of yell and scream and carry on? Or do you think, what? I can't actually change the situation, but I can choose how I'm going to respond to it. In fact, if you come to my masterclass tomorrow, all you guys listening, that's one of the things I talk about, whether you're living at cause or living at effect. I also have a free course about living at cause versus living at effect. So, this is about choosing how we respond. And that's why I feel it's empowered living, because you're making a choice, but it's about what I do. It doesn't matter about the rest of the world. The rest of the world will be the rest of the world. I can't change anything outside of me. I can't change my children. I can't change my spouse. I can't change my parents. They have the right to be who they are as they are on their journey of life. I can just change me, or I can have some things in place that says so. So values and boundaries are another thing that I love. So my boundaries allow me to say how you can treat me. And that's the only way I can change other people, by saying, you know what? I don't give you the right to speak to me disrespectfully. But otherwise, again, it's up to me to choose to say, sorry, you're being disrespectful. I'm not talking anymore. So I'm not changing you. I'm just saying, this is what I will accept. The only way you will change is if you decide, okay, I want to have a conversation still. That's the only way I can change anyone else. But otherwise, it's only about what I can do for me. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I saw a video the other day. What other people think about yourself, you have that is none of your business.
Yeah, exactly.
That's none of your business what other people think about you.
For sure.
It's so true. It's so true. It's very true.
Yeah.
But the problem is we get hung up on what other people think.
Exactly.
I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it as well.
So am I, not so much anymore, but I used to do. But since doing all this work now, I've really changed the way I look at the world. So a friend of mine has a t-shirt that says Zen AF, and I'm now Zen AF.
Zen AF, is it?
Zen AF.
Zen AF.
Yeah.
Zen AF.
You know what that means? Yeah.
Right?
You know what AF means? It's a rude word. Zen as F.
Zen as F. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And like you said before, before we come on to the podcast, you said to me, well, if no one died, well then I must have done something right. So it's very true. It's okay if we make mistakes. Personally, I learn better from making mistakes. When it goes smoothly, I'm concerned.
Okay, I have a story about that as well, but I'm a chatterbox. I can do it forever. So my greatest failure in teaching became my greatest strength.
Yeah, right. All right. So tell us about a success story. Tell us about a testimonial. Tell us about someone that you've had that really stood out. You thought, wow, that was a really good result.
So NLP deals with the 5 main emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And what happens is we take a person through each of these emotions, and we talk about the first time that this emotion happened in their life, and then we address it for the rest of their life. So I had a woman in one of my self-love courses who wasn't kind of tracking very well. I said, listen, why don't you do a one-on-one? I used to give away a lot of pro bono coaching. Why don't you do a one-on-one, and I'll do some NLP with you. So I said, fair enough. So we did the 5 emotions, and she said, oh my gosh, Alyson, this has made such a difference. She said, because when we did the self-love course, her self-image was that she was a loser. And I said, so what do you think now? She said, well, I'm a work in progress. And for me, that was such a gift, because this is someone who thought she was a loser, who now realise that, you know what, she's not a loser, she's just human. You know, and as humans, we make mistakes. As humans, as you said before, we learn from our mistakes. As humans, we grow through the things that we learn, and we learn from our mistakes. So for this woman to now come from saying I'm a loser to I'm a work in progress was such a big gift for me. When we did this on Zoom, and I had tears rolling down my face, I could barely see her. So that was beautiful. I love that. And then when I do my blue readings, the actually co-creation session, I've had two women who actually had a really life-changing experience, because one woman came to me and she didn't really know what her life purpose was anymore because she'd lost her life purpose. And then we spent the time together just using the cards as prompts. We just peeled back the onion, if you like, and she then had the most amazing the most amazing, kind of like dropped down into her awareness of what she was meant to do. Even to the point that she said, I was wanting to do a painting, and she said, I now know I want my painting to be a butterfly, because it really is about coming out of the chrysalis and into this beautiful butterfly. And she found again her life purpose just by doing the blue reading. Again, I'm crying on Zoom, right? My heart is full. I've got goosebumps all through my body, because I get energy going right through my body when these magnificent things happen. I'm getting it now, even as we speak. My legs are buzzing. So that really is, it makes me feel so humble that I can help people do that. Another lady knew what her life purpose was, but she kind of had lost the plot again, and she just wanted to come back, and she wanted to make sure she was on the right track. So she got confirmation. As we say, you get insight, clarity, and direction. And sometimes each of those can just be confirmation of, yes, I'm on the right track, or no, I'm on the wrong track, I just need to go to that track. So this is why I like having lots of modalities, because each modality has its own beauty, its own way of getting the result that client needs.
Once they've found their purpose, so you go through a map as well to figure out.
I can. I'm not a business coach, so I don't pretend to be. What I can do with business is I can help you do some strategy work to get you to clarify your business purpose and what you want to do. And now with AI, it's so much easier to get AI to help. But I do have some amazing business coaches that I can refer people to. In fact, there's a girl I'm working with this week called Sarah Ann. She's amazing. Check her out on Facebook. She's only 30, and she has done amazing things in her coaching career. And she's now helping people to scale to, multiple six figures. So as I said, if I can't help you, I will pass you on to someone who I know can help. And you'll get great results wherever you are.
Okay, so you're more about self-development and
I'm more about mindset and mindset transformation.
And self-development, growth, and I get that. Because it does come from the self. If you don't grow within yourself, then it's gonna it just spreads to the people around you.
Of course.
That's the problem. And then then they take on that that insecurity and that withdrawal, and that's what happens to us. So I get it. I understand, and I went through that myself. I understand that through my business. I've been in business for 10 years. You go through highs and lows.
For sure.
And you've got to go back to like you said, what's your purpose and why do you want to do this? So just quickly tell us about one more. Is there anyone else that you have helped?
Well, there are quite a few. I just can't think of any off the top of my head that kind of really stand out. There's one lady who has she's a Southeast Asian origin, so she's got some cultural what what's the word people influences, if you like, in her relationships with her family. She's also an empath, and she's also fairly sort of quiet and reserved. So introverted. So if she's not able to kind of like stand up for herself or be assertive, or I've also got a values and boundaries course for free that people can have, but she's not good at keeping her boundaries in place. So work I've been doing with her, she has now really come through being able to sort of take her own power and say, no, you can't do this, or have alternative ways of getting her information across so that she maintains a relationship with the other person while still, making sure that her needs are heard, and she's not, and the relationship with the other person is still being maintained. So that, I think, is another real win, because I said, you cannot change anyone else. You can only change you. And when you change, they will change in response to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I understand. And that comes back to the perception as well. And you can only change your own perception. You can't change someone else's.
That's
right. Unless you're the government. I'm only kidding. But yeah, what was I going to say? So I'll move on to the. Is there anything more that you want to speak about your business as well?
Just realised tomorrow, is this going live, you said? So tomorrow's masterclass is actually Friday the 1st of August, not the 31st of July. So I got that wrong, but it's 10 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, that's really it. Thank you.
That's it there, so 10 a.m.
Yeah, tomorrow, July the 1st.
Okay. So is there the 3 keys to living a life of empowerment?
Yeah.
Masterclass.
It goes for an hour, and if anybody wants to stay on longer, we'll do half an hour of blink cards.
Oh, cool. Very cool. So okay, I'll move on to the third question. So tell us, who's your ideal client? You've sort of already spoken about it already.
Yeah.
So tell us, who do you like to help the most?
So, as I say, women over 40, particularly women who are finding that for whatever reason, in whatever part of their life, it's just not working. Now, I've been in the corporate sector again, where as a woman around the table of men, you're not heard. You say something and it's nothing is said, but someone else, a man often, and this is not about man bashing, please understand that. It's just about, women not being sort of seen, heard and valued in their lives, whether in their personal or their professional lives. But, you can say something and it's nothing is said. But a guy says it and then everyone says, yeah, that's a great idea, or they jump on that and you go, hang on, I said that already. Not that you would say that out loud, but you think to yourself, I said that already. Or again, as a woman in the corporate sector, I've come across women who have been given an opportunity and they go, oh, I don't think I could. And then it goes to someone else, again, often a man, and it's just the way we're wired. Men and women are wired differently. And that comes from our DNA from your caveman, when men had to be bold and brave and go out and kill the saber-toothed tiger. And women had to stay back and look after the kids and the heart. So, but often, guys will say, yeah, I can do that, even though they might not have the ability, and they get up there, but then, and some of them rise to it and some of them don't. Whereas women will generally say, no, I don't think I can. So I have had imposter syndrome in every job I've had, including as a coach. And imposter syndrome gets high achievers, men and women. Albert Einstein had it. Maya Angelou had it. These are people who are well regarded. So, some of that imposter syndrome, all of those sort of those characteristics of imposter syndrome, the symptoms, are things that I deal with as well. So if you're a woman over 40 who really wants to live a fulfilled life, either in your personal life or in your professional life, we can do this together. That's my ideal client.
Very cool, very cool. And what was I going to say? I'll go on to the last question. So, what ideas or information would you give us to provide lifelong longevity, please, Alyson?
So I'm very much about mind, body, and spirit, or mind, body, and soul connection. The irony is, I have taken my body for granted for the longest time. But as I get older, I know that now that hydration, healthy eating and movement are important for your body. And I'm now putting that into place a lot sort of later in life than I should have earlier, because as I said, I've been lucky enough to have a healthy body. But I also know that how we are in our mind will affect our body. So, we talk about cancer eating away at you. Well, cancer comes from resentment. And that's why having a healthy mind and having that emotional regulation and being able to choose what you want to do and not let others, put upon you, that's the mind, right? So the mind and the body. And the spirit, the soul, is about what gives you joy, how you feel good about yourself. And that's why I love doing self-love. I love to make you feel that you are seen, heard, and valued. Because all of us have something we all have gifts, we all have talents, and we all have something to contribute. So for me, that mind, body, spirit kind of connection is all about, living to your best for yourself and for others around you.
Yes, I totally agree. So that so I'll just go back to the empowerment. So there you go. So that's on this evening, is it?
This evening, well, it's actually a Friday in Australia, which will be evening in North America.
Okay. Yeah.
So it will be happening 23 hours from now.
So that should be the 1st of August, should it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The 31st. Okay. Gotcha. So it's tomorrow morning our time. And,
yeah.
So where are you? Where are you based as well, Alyson?
I live in Canberra, but we do this on Zoom. So register via the email. That way I can send you the workbook.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'll just put up here what Clive said. So Clive Elvis Moore, he said, thank you for having the conversation that needs to be had. So much appreciated, Clive. And you'll actually get access to my website, and the same with you, Alyson. You get access to my bronze membership. So there it is there, free access at the checkout. So that's worth $11. You get it for free for 1 month.
Thank you.
So there it is. There's my health club, www.16secondpunch.com.au/health club. We'll give that to you anyway. And same with Clive. You'll get access to it too. So like Alyson said, tune in with it tomorrow morning. It should be a great event. And appreciate it for your time, Alyson. And thanks so much.
And just one more thing before we leave, Scott. So if anybody out there would like my free Values and Boundaries course and my free Living at Cause course, please, Living at Cause course, please reach out to me and I will send that to you.
That sounds like a mouthful. Course.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Much appreciated.
Thanks very
much for everyone who tuned in, and we appreciate your time, Alyson. Thank you so much.
Nice. Okay, thanks, Scott. Bye, everyone.
You take care, everyone.